Hey guys, I'm here. Today we're going to be checking out new Rockstars breakdown of episode 6 of The Mandalorian. I am late to this, as you can probably tell just from listening to me right now, if you've been around the channel at all. Throat is a little froggy at the moment. I had to cancel my live stream yesterday just because it was just too difficult to even speak, especially for 2 hours. But I've kind of getting a little antsy, so I'm going to try to push through and get this video out to you guys. I apologize for it being late, but it is what it is, man. With the general discourse around this episode, despite my enjoyment of it and many others, I mean, it seems that this episode has very much so torn the Star Wars sphere asunder over what is going on with this show, and it just seems like another episode of The Mandalorian to me. So, like, I don't know what we're watching. But let's see what all we missed during the episode. Here we go. As always, we're covering this over with new Rockstars. Their video will be linked in the description. Make sure to support them. They put out some great videos, some great work, and some good merch. Go check out their store. Let's go ahead and hop in. Here we go.
Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Eric Boss, and this is a breakdown of The Mandalorian Season 3, Episode 6, Chapter 22, Guns for Hire. A Clone Wars throwback vibe that ends with Dooku loving Doc Brown getting shocked with 1.21 gigawatts. Mon Calamari Romeo to Ornish and Mandoa translations and hidden sound effects. I got you covered with the scene-by-scene breakdown of all the Star Wars Easter eggs you missed. We open with a Quarren freighter. Now, Quarrens are the amphibious species who share the planet Mon Cala with the Mon Calamari, and Mon Calamari cruisers like Home One, that was Admiral Akbar's flagship in Return of the Jedi, were constructed from aquatic cities on the planet of Mon Cala, so presumably this freighter could also go underwater, thus its submarine-looking design and its curved hull. I also just like that they have the same color and fin shape of the Quarren head, and like us piloting space with ships that look like our heads. Quarrens and Mon Calamari have historically been at war with each other, and in the first 3 episodes of Clone Wars Season 4, we got to see a lot of that, where the Quarrens were backed by separatists, but the Mon Calamari were able to reject the separatist influence and reach a peace on the planet. Now, these Quarrens are bypassing trade routes to the planet Trask, that was a water-covered planet that we saw in Chapter 11, the last episode of The Mandalorian, directed by Bryce Dallas Howard. She also directed one of the best episodes of the Book of Boba Fett. We meet Captain Shuggoth, who's played by Christine Adams from Black Lightning.
Oh,
she
wow.
has a cocktail that is poured into her tank for her to eat that.
I thought she sounded familiar.
Notices, but when she eats the fish, the water swish sound effect is from the same audio asset library as Crash Bandicoot Warped when Crash spins in the underwater levels.
What?
Now, why
it
does
kind of
be
is
in a water tank while the other Quarren have to be in open air? I just like to think it's a cool ceremonial thing for Quarren captains to be more in tune with their home waters. We find out she's in love with this Mon Calamari prince, played by Harry Holland. That's Tom Holland's brother. Fun little trivia point here. Christine Adams is 48. Harry Holland is 24. Nice. Moff Gideon's Imperial light cruiser fills the frame, a recurring Star Wars visual since the first shot of A New Hope. But this tells us that
literally
after
half the age.
Season 2 finale, Gideon's ship was left with Bo-Katan's group, including Axe Woves. Now remember, Axe Woves was in Bo-Katan's group when we first met them in live action on Trask, and he's joined here by Costco Reeves. Now Shuggoth has to break up with her boyfriend, and they share this romantic kiss, her tentacles caressing his face. It's so sweet and so romantic.
So
also,
Davy
it's nice
Jonesy.
to see one Quarren on the show who isn't a total asshole. Bo-Katan
that is true. That is true.
To Pleazier 15 with a glass dome city structures.
That is true. Like the other Quarren that we did encounter previously, very much so line up with the way they are usually depicted, you know, in various Star Wars media, especially like if you think back to like KOTOR and stuff like that, because you're always kind of inclined to side with the Calamari and all that, because they were introduced to them from the Republic perspective, from the Rebellion perspective through Akbar, so they're trying to evoke that same feeling. So they always kind of catered to the Calamari due to that familiarity with the big screen counterpart. Anyway, I don't know why I went down that diatribe about all that, but it's nice that we got to see that even after this peace treaty and after that, there are these groups that are still finding these connections, crossing these barriers. But it just seems like that some, especially at least of the older folk, especially, you know, this Mon Cala's mother, still has some of those like latent bigotries in there. If they just like, no, if they left, it was like she absconded with my son, when realistically they left willfully and by choice and all that. They just don't want them with a, you know, a Quarren. So it plays into the greater themes of the episode now that I'm kind of breaking that down and thinking about it, because you have Lizzo's character, who was the her family originally heralds from this planet, falling in love with an ex-Imperial politician as well, or general. I don't know, I can't remember what his station was, but he was an ex-Imperial. They found love through these borders. The rest of the theme is about, organics versus the droids. There's a lot of like these divides, and even through Mando and Bo-Katan's journey throughout the city is this push and pull of their different ways of communicating with different types of people. And yet again, Din's own personal biases coming up and clouding certain visions and viewpoints and skewing things a certain way. Till the end of the day, turns out it was this separatist at the end of the day. And again, I love the separatists are getting a lot of love here lately, because in the end, I mean, aside from falling to the dark side, Dooku was right in the grand scheme of things. And it just makes me wish that, and I think that he wished this too, and I know this is a long little rant, that if Obi-Wan had taken him up on that offer, I think he would have willfully betrayed Sidious, but he told him the truth knowing he wouldn't believe it. But I think part of him was hoping that he would, but knew that it was unlikely in that moment. But anyway, let's go.
It's like what the Mandalorians had on Mandalore. Now, the word Pleazier means peaceful, and with its dome and monorail, Epcot definitely seems to be an inspiration here. I like how the gauntlet cuts through the cloud.
Dude, it made me think of Smile. If anybody's watched Doctor Who, the Smile episode with Peter Capaldi in the world where all of the organics are now deceased and all that is left is this pristine, beautiful, like futuristic world where the droids are the only ones left standing because they killed everybody. That's what that reminded me of, at least. But Epcot also, though I've never been, it does evoke that same aesthetic.
With the same framing as it did over Sundari in Chapter 18, which is what I hope happens to this planet. Their ship is commandeered by Pleazier 15 Mission Control.
Welcome to Pleazier 15, the Outer Rim's only remaining direct democracy.
So by direct democracy, they're referring to a political system where, instead of a republic where the masses elect representatives to make decisions for them, all decisions are instead made by popular vote. Like how in the United States, some states will let residents vote on a wide range of ballot measures, like should we build a bridge? Put it to a vote. Should we reduce sales taxes? Put that to a vote. As opposed to, just vote for a city council or governor or senate and they'll represent your interests. Pleazier 15 makes the case
I was like, I don't know the distinction.
Is at least worth trying, since the Republic and the New Republic now and the military dictatorship of the Empire in between have all failed people. I like how Bo-Katan's screen reads the Mandoa language control override. They're greeted by a black-plated RA-7 protocol droid and astromech droid, typically seen on Imperial ships. Now the hyperlink monorail pod voice cites Article 9 of the Coruscant Accords, which was also cited in Chapter 19 in reference to the prohibition on cloning research. These were signed at the end of the Galactic Civil War before the New Republic capital was moved to Chandrilla. But this voice is actually a cameo by Catherine Tabor, the voice of Padme in Clone Wars.
Aww.
They begrudgingly scan their chain codes, these orange tinted holograms of Mandoa text from their gauntlets, like what Boba Fett showed in Chapter 14 to prove his Mandalorian ancestry from his clone father Jango and his teacher Jasta Mareel. Inside, the palace guards are wearing repurposed stormtrooper armor, and we see some colorful fauna flapping around overhead in this kind of atrium space. There's a tank above their heads with an aquatic creature that you get a much better look at in the closing credits concept art. It's from this tank that they're all taking little sippy sips through these hoses. I think that's a little Nuna that jumps on the table there. And sitting on this table is an assortment of Rhodians, Bits, Ithorians, Celestins, that frog-like race of the lady in chapters 10 and 11, and at the head of the table, Captain Bombardier and the Duchess, played by Jack Black and Lizzo. And look, I get it. These cameos did make this feel like a bit of an SNL sketch, or remember when Jack Black and Cloris Leachman cameoed in that in-universe movie in the Super Bowl episode of The Office? Hey, kudos to Jack Black and Lizzo for committing to the bits and not like winking at the camera or anything, but they're just larger-than-life presences, and casting them and not disguising them under alien makeup just took me out of it a bit. I think Star Wars can pull...
I gotta wholeheartedly disagree. While seeing Jack Black initially, sure, is jarring, but in an exciting way for me, like, they seem like any other politician we've met. If we've watched the Clone Wars, if we watched Rebels, hell, if we've watched The Mandalorian literally just episodes ago, like, they look like and act like a lot of the snubby, frilly, showy politicians that we've seen time and time and again throughout this series. You know, it just, I don't know, it felt no different to me. But if it did for you, all power to you. But like, it just felt like more of the same we've seen in this world. This whole episode, again, like he said, felt like a Clone Wars episode to me, but in like the best of ways. Like,
pull off this stunt casting in small doses like Tim Meadows or Thundercat in the Book of Boba Fett, or the comedic character actors who really commit to the dirty scamps who definitely fit in this world, like Amy Sedaris as Pelimoto, Bill Burr as Mix Mayfeld, when Stephen F. Root played that water hoarder in the Book of Boba Fett. And I don't think I would feel this way if it was just Lizzo or just Jack Black, but these two huge stars together was just kind of overkill. Like a little example of this, listen closely to what Jack Black is singing in the scene. He's singing the song "Do You Love Me" from Fiddler on the Roof. It's a show tune and it's in Star Wars. What? But musically, I do like that we hear this flute music when they walk in.
I mean, maybe we could do that. I mean, the intonation, sure, it matches, but it's also so generic of a phrase. Had he continued on to do the entire song, maybe, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just defending this episode a little too hard. I don't know. I loved it.
Join us! Come!
The only issue I really had with it, it was like the pacing was a little quick, or at least the resolution to the city arc with the droids and all that, I thought were a little quick when they brought in Christopher Lloyd to be judged. Like, I thought that was kind of a rush scene, but that was really the only complaint I had with the episode, personally.
I'm pretty sure this is the flute music of Lizzo herself, because she is so good at that flute. I guess the only way I can defend this casting is maybe as a meta indictment on the perils of direct democracy. Like Bombardier says, they're both royals and elected leaders, meaning the citizens of Pleazier 15 elected pop culture celebrity dimwits as their leaders, kind of like in Mike Judge's excellent film Idiocracy. But I'm not convinced this episode proved they intended this to be satirical political commentary. I just think Filoni and Favreau wanted some goofy Clone Wars filler episode hijinks with some fun cameos. I mean, whatever, I've gone on this for too long.
I swear to God, if this episode in no way, shape, or form was filler. I don't know if that's what you meant or you were comparing it to a filler episode of the Clone Wars, but this episode in no stretch of the imagination is by definition a filler episode in context of The Mandalorian. Furthers the plot, it furthers the main plot, it furthers the characters, it furthers the world. It is... Anyway.
I do really like the way Jack Black pronounces the word program.
And thanks to the New Republic Amnesty Program, I personally oversaw the program.
Bombardier refers to the Bantha in the room, which is ironic because they used an elephant named Margie to play the Bantha in A New Hope. And notice how he has an Amnesty Orbesh A badge like Elia Kane and Dr. Pershing had. This serves as a literal scarlet letter that they must wear to show their past crimes. The Duchess' seat has a hologram feathery plumage that follows her around, making it a kind of throne or a crown for wherever she happens to be sitting, as the Duchess, wherever she is sitting, is a de facto throne. They task Bo-Katan and Din Djarin with investigating some droid malfunctions, using the fact that as Mandalorians they could carry their weapons inside the city, promising to legally recognize Mandalore to the New Republic. But for Din Djarin, his interests are more simple than that.
You had me at battle droids.
And again, that is tied directly to the main through line of this season so far.
Now, what I'm struggling to get about this is that part of Din Djarin's character development over these past seasons has been a gradual forgiveness of droids. Like, he definitely hated them in the pilot, coming from his traumatic childhood when B2 series battle droids killed his parents. But the first episodes of this season showed him going to great lengths to revive IG-11, someone he considered a friend. So why does he suddenly now hate droids again? They meet Security Commissioner Hellgate, played by Christopher Lloyd. He says the droids were planned to be scrapped to Carthan. Those are the chop fields where they found Miggs Mayfeld in Chapter 15. And from here, the episode becomes a mystery detective procedural, like iRobot, or an episode of Law & Order. That includes casting a semi-big name as someone the detectives interview early on, who inevitably ends up being the bad guy. The Orbesh on the security screen reads camera 703 to 739, and above that, Sector 7G, which is where Homer Simpson works in The Simpsons. We see a sanitation droid who tosses garbage everywhere, like a sanitation worker who's just really having a rough day. We see a battle droid who throws clothes around, and a valet droid who hijacks a speeder and runs it directly into the wall. All of these very much first world problems. I love it. There's a COO series cook droid, though, like we saw Navarro in Chapter 17 and in Jabba's house in Boba Fett, and it got away, but it sounds like he chops those people to death. And in this room, the Orbesh sigil on the back wall reads Pleazier 15, you know, the name of the planet, kind of like how in our buildings we have walls that say Earth. Hellgate says that the citizens voted to have no interruption to droid services, that they cannot live without it, much like the future humans of Pixar's WALL-E. He says that they spend all their time with the arts and voting on a bunch of stuff, which is what happens in a direct democracy. You wouldn't have time to do anything else other than to vote and I guess to take a bunch of improv classes. In the Ugnaughts droid shop, we see parts of B2 B2 battle droids, B1 battle droids, protocol droids, and Ralph McQuarrie's original protocol droid design that this season has brought back a few times, like that taxi droid on Coruscant. Bo-Katan insults them by saying their machines are malfunctioning and that they may not have heard much down here, but that Ugnaught says that the tunnels are really the central nervous system of the city, something Mando can relate with as a former sewer dweller. And I like this. This is my favorite scene of the episode because it demonstrates that Din Djarin has changed over the course of the series, that he's been affected by his past relationship with Kuiil, and it's now given him a diplomatic tactic that Bo-Katan lacks. Mando kicks a marching B2 like...
Well, diplomatic in some aspects, because Bo had to kind of take charge when it came to the droids, though.
The Boston Dynamics engineers who kicked that robot dog, a terrible idea, because you know they'll never forget that. This is also like an iRobot.
Yeah.
Will Smith goes robot by robot, shooting some, threatening them, until he outs a malfunctioning rogue, leading to this amazing chase through the streets. Now, the B1 series droid Foreman is voiced by Matthew Wood, longtime Lucasfilm sound editor who voiced General Grievous, Bib Fortuna, and all the animated series battle droids. He always does this great work, but I think my favorite thing that he ever said was, General Kenobi. Now, there are some interesting contrasts here between Din Djarin and Bo-Katan during this chase. Like, Din jumps over the barrels with his own strength, Bo-Katan uses her jet thrusters, and when that B2 droid throws a crate, Bo-Katan uses her thrusters to blast ahead to keep moving, whereas Din turns around to make sure no one was hurt. And yes, they pass a ton of neon orange signs. There's a yellow one reading Joanno Cafe, a white one reading Open. Right before that, there was a mouse droid scurrying around. There are some vertical pink signs reading The Orbit and Nightclub next to it. I'd like to hit up that place. Now, as the crate flies over their heads, over on the left side of the screen, there's a droid shop with a pink sign reading Premium Droid Rentals. There's some other signs for bars or clubs called Hades Dog and Apocalypse right beneath that, flickering in for coming. Again, I hope this is foreshadowing the apocalyptic doom of this planet, especially since after this episode, it no longer has hired guns to defend it. The speeder that the B2 jumps on looks like one with the body of the speeder that Han drives on Corellia in Solo, a Star Wars story, but has the grill of Luke Skywalker's speeder in A New Hope. They run past 4 speeder bikes, all white, which might be a meta nod to the M&M colored versions of these bikes that people complained about in the Book of Boba Fett. Same bikes, just without the distracting colors. There's a yellow sign reading Spa, and another yellow road sign that looks like warning about speed. So Din ends the chase by tackling the B2 through a window, and Bo-Katan disables his shoulders from behind. A few constable droids roll out.
It is a crime scene. Thank you for standing back.
Yeah, those sirens are the same siren sound effects from Minority Report.
Oh, cool.
Their hollow police tape reads caution in Aurebesh and in another language. And reflected on the ground from the blue neon sign above is Aurebesh for dive bar. As they walk down the street, another Aurebesh bar sign reads flaming lizard. There's some spinning text overhead in the hologram, including the word quality, that's in blue, and beneath in purple, gravity scooters. I really think plugging those white scooters that we saw before. And then they turn down the alley to the resistor bar. In blue across the street behind them, I think that says refreshments. Then there are 2 of those McQuarrie protocol droids hitting on each other in the alley, and they enter the resistor bar. Inside, I love this gag with several flasks clinking, but they're all being carried by the multiple hands of one COO series cook droid. Our man is like quadruple fisting. Can't blame him, they've seen a lot. We see an antennaed rickshaw droid that we saw at the end of Book of Boba Fett, some RX series droids, like Rex from Star Tours, he's also in the bar in Galaxy's Edge. They're playing a card game of Sabacc. We see a bunch of protocol droids, astromech droids, EV series droids, RA7 droids, B1 battle droids, but the bartender is voiced by Seth Gable, the actor from Fringe, Salem, and Nip Tuck. He says these droids fear replacement, which is what happened to these droids when the Separatists were defeated by the Republic/Empire. At this point, they were defeated by the Clone Trooper army, but then these clone troopers were replaced by human recruits. The bartender says they all drink nepenthe, which is a viscous lubricant that protects from wear and delivers refreshing subparticles. Now, the word nepenthe comes from a forgetfulness drug in Greek mythology, translating to that which chases away sorrow, making this a really sad drink for these poor droids and the horrors they've witnessed.
Didn't even make that connection.
Droids drink from the same batch of it. A bad batch, you might say. And they go to a droid morgue. This lab tech is played by Jen Kober, who showed up in the Righteous Gemstones. She used a white medical probe droid to extract the nepenthe. Dr. Pershing used one of these on Grogu in Chapter 3, and Darth Vader used one of these on Leia in A New Hope. As with the B2 droid earlier, this one's light turns red, reminding us of Hal in 2001: A Space Odyssey and Otto in Wall-E. All these may link back to that red button on Hellgate's desk, which he later reveals is actually a failsafe switch to turn all of the droids hostile. He actually may be activating each of these droids every time Din and Bo get closer and closer to finding the truth. But Din brings this one down with the Darksaber. Darksaber. So they continue analyzing the subparticles, and the text says that they were made by the Techno Union. This
Yep.
was part of the Separatists in the prequels. It was one that just looked like a big dumb robot who sat at the table. These
Always had to adjust his voice box.
Taken over by the Empire, and you actually see their guild sigil showing up in the corner when we see that ID screen of Hellgate later. There's a lot of Orbesh on this screen. First, on the right column, that Orbesh translates to scope active, zoom level, and controls. And then they realize that each of the nanobots has more writing on it, a chain code that is revealed on a green screen with a ton of Orbesh text. And since we're seeing it from behind, we got to reverse it, or you can just look at it from the text point of view. The big words translate to code deciphering, search complete, but then you see words like commandinav, and the words at this point just start to be gibberish. I'm pretty sure I translated as much as I could, and then I just lost my mind because it's all just like random letters. But the final ID screen for Hellgate is an amazing troll from the VFX artists for us nerds. It translates to, "This means nothing. However, fans may," and they spelled however with a P, I think that might have been a mistake. This is, "However, fans may interpret the hell out of it. CSI FTW for the win."
What the hell?
That in there for us. So when they confront Commissioner
What
Hellgate,
the
he
hell?
is a dogmatic separatist and a Dooku
Gate?
supporter. And Christopher Lloyd is so good at this. He's one of the best actors to reveal himself as a villain, famously as Judge Doom in Who Framed Roger
Hell
Rabbit.
yeah, God, that scarred me for life.
Hellgate rants.
Count Dooku was a visionary. He was cut short in his prime by the Jedi and Forces.
Yeah, Bo-Katan cut him off right as he was about to say, cut in short in his prime by the Jedi Enforcer Anakin Skywalker. And mixed into that zap, I'm pretty sure, is a bit of the singe sound effect we heard when Anakin cut Dooku short. Do it.
Oh, do you think that's actually what he was gonna say? I thought he was just gonna say the Jedi Enforcers, not actually drop a name. Like, how would he even know? That was never. Was that ever made public? That Anakin executed him? I don't remember.
And Christopher Lloyd sells this so well. He's also one of the best actors to just play electrocution between Doc Brown and Uncle Fester. So the Duchess and her husband are playing a croquet type game with these things that roll up. It reminds me of Alice in Wonderland when the Queen of Hearts plays croquet and Grogu uses the Force to help her cheat. But Martier calls Hellgate despicable and he responds,
If that isn't the Quacta calling the stifling slimy.
which is something we heard in the season 2 finale when Boba Fett said this to
Yep.
Costco Reeves.
That isn't the Quacta calling the stifling slimy.
And in the book of Boba Fett from Cad Bane.
If that's not the Quacta calling the stifling slimy.
The Duchess exiles Hellgate to the moon of Paraquat, and in this court, a droid carries a tray with the key to the city. This is the same LEV series service droid that was chased around Jabba's palace in the Book of Boba Fett. Now, the key to the city actually kind of looks like a modified toy Millennium Falcon. I might be wrong about that, but it looks like something specific. And then she knights Grogu, I guess for helping her cheat.
You are now a knight of the Ancient Order of Independent Regency.
Yeah, that French horn theme is the Grogu music that played when Mando and Grogu reunited. So they head out to the Mandalorian camp where they find Axe Woves. He has some banners in Mandoa that my buddy Ryan Airy from Screen Crush says translate to Vizsla. Not so sure about that though, because it looks like a lot more than 6 letters. House Vizsla wouldn't be represented here. They're with the Children of the Watch. It looks like 13 letters. I was thinking maybe Night Owls. Maybe this is the way. But honestly, I translated it upside down, backwards, forwards. It just looks like gibberish, I think. But cool Easter egg here. In this yard is that ship that they stole from Trask in Chapter 11. They keep everything they take. So Bo-Katan ends up defeating Axe Woves in a duel, but he still discounts Din Djarin as an impure foundling, not a drop of Mandalorian blood in him, which makes Axe Woves a bit of a racist. So to win over the skeptics, Din Djarin uses some Elder Wand bullshit logic about what happened in the mines of Mandalore and how Bo-Katan slayed his captor.
Yeah, I thought
who
that
had
would
disarmed
come
him
up.
with the Darksaber. And you know what? It worked.
I assumed that was going to actually come up sooner than this, to be honest, that whole bit. But yeah, well, here it is.
On everybody. But I love this final shot. Bo-Katan ignites the Darksaber, but unlike the moment in Rebels when she held it over her head, here she keeps it lower at her side, as if to show she has now learned the weight of the responsibility of wielding this blade. A reminder to subscribe to our new channel, The Deep Dive.
All right, there we have it. Man, God, like even like Eric's tone about this episode seemed a little hostile. Is it just me? But yeah, it was a great breakdown. A lot of Orbesh that he went through and translated. Lots of fun little details and all that stuff. Again, I don't know. I thought the episode was well in line with what we've seen in Star Wars so far. I didn't have any issue with the castings at all. Again, you know, just the fact that they're celebrities doesn't change the character that they went with, the characters that they brought to life, and those characters fit within this world from what we've seen just fine in comparison to other episodes of other shows, and even this same show Like in episode 3, man, we saw people acting around just like this in certain ways. It's just because it's Lizzo and Jack Black that everybody's kind of like losing their shit about it, and it's just like, who gives a fuck? Like, it's cool to see them, but at the end of the day, they're actors playing a role. You know, I don't know. If you didn't like it, I mean, that's one thing or another. But like, again, like I will say that calling it filler is inaccurate, because it by no means is. But yeah, I thought the episode was fun. That was fun. I love the dynamic of Bo and Din, them working together and kind of solving this crime, and them leaning on each other, their strengths and their weaknesses. And I'm hoping that carries forward in their dynamic. And I do agree that I'm not sure exactly where this leaves Din as far as his role in all of this at the moment. I did say that I did see at Star Wars Celebration that Rick Famuyiwa did confirm that the show is just no longer focused on Din. That is, he's no longer the central focus, or the sole focus, I think, rather. That it has kind of grown to be more about the Mandalorian people. For me, when the show kicked off, you know, I had kind of presumed that would be the case. I didn't always think we would only be following Din. I mean, there was speculation that every season might follow a different Mandalorian. When we had the hints and the echoings of whether or not we would have a Boba Fett season coming up or whatnot, which we eventually did. And, you know, Bo-Katan popped up in season 2. I was never really honed in on the fact that the Mandalorian specifically only meant Din, but I know a lot of people did, and honestly, I think the marketing, the way the show is kind of parsed out up to this point, can definitely give that impression. So I'm very curious to see how people roll with that whole spiel, but we'll see. I'm excited for the next episode, though. When I was doing my research for my breakdown of the announcements from Star Wars Celebration on Friday, I saw and read the clip from episode 7 that was shown to the people there. So there's some fun stuff coming. I think I can't wait. I can't wait for these last 2 episodes. That said, I hope I don't mean to like come off condescending or anything like that, but like there are certain things that people throw around when they get passionately divided on a certain subject that are just not true. Calling this filler or having it be a distraction from the main plot are just false, because they're not. This is directly linked into the story we've been following all season long. It's not like we just packed up and this had no impact at all on what was happening. Like, they created a political ally here. They grew together as a team, as a unit, as characters. They resolved the Darksaber plot, and they were only here for Axe Woves and Casca Reeves, and to bring that clan back into the fold as they were charged in the previous episode to do so, to go out and find all the disbanded Mandalorians and try to bring them all together. That's why they are here. And this was the why and the how and the means to make that end obtainable. So, like, it is the plot. I don't even know what else to call it. You could like the episode, you could not like the elements of it, the tone, the vibe, the feeling, the acting, the writing, whatever, but it is a plot episode. That all said, what did you all think? Were there any Easter eggs that you guys caught that they missed? If so, sound off the comments. Let me know your thoughts down below. We'll carry on the conversation after the video. If you enjoyed this, please leave a like, drop a comment, subscribe if you're not already. And before we go, I want to shout out our channel legends: Manny Sherritt, Ryan Karen, Jason Coleman, Philly Vane, Yorick Coruscant, Margaret Grace, Melita, Robert Anguiano, Raven McGann, Jeffrey Hale, M. Sephiroth, Jake Cantrell, and Josh Lee. Thank you guys so much for your continued support, and everybody who's been supporting the channel. Thank you guys so much. That's it for this video, guys, and I'll see you all in the next one. May the Force be with you always. Take care, everybody.